Hello, people. Welcome to a brand new section. And in this section, we will talk about forms. What is a form? Form is an interface on a web page that allows users to input data. This data is sent to the server, to our DotNet server, for processing, such as creating a new account, submitting feedback, or performing a search. How forms work? User interact with an input element. When the form is submitted, the browser sends the data to the server. The server processes the data and sends a response back to the client. Why use forms? Forms are essential for enabling interaction between users and the web application. Example of forms elements are text inputs, checkboxes, radio buttons, drop-downs, buttons. The key reasons to use forms is for user input, for server communication, for validation. Let's see a real-world form example. In e-commerce, you add items to a cart and process payments through forms. Social media, update profiles and post comments. Feedback, submit surveys or reviews. Enough talking. Let's now go to code and see how to create forms on ASP.NET Core. Let's create a new project called forms example. Create. Okay, let's create an example for our user signing up our application. Let's create a controller called register controller. All right, register controller has an index action. Let's add a view to this action. Let's create it empty. Index. Let's create our view model. You know what are the purpose of view models? Now, let's create a register VM. And for our user registration, we need a name, an email, and a password. This is enough for a user registration. In the view, let's create our form. We can start with a tag form, and let's create a label with a name, an input of type text, and a class form control just for style purpose. Let's copy this name, email, type email, and a password of type password. Now, to connect this form to an endpoint, first we need to create a post endpoint because every time a form is submitted, by default, the action is post, but we can customize it. Let's say public action result. Let's say register. And here in the parameter of the action, it must be our VM, register VM. We can call here each name that we want. Okay, if the values are valid, saving it on database. Later on, we'll see how to do that. And sending user to a product page. let's just create this example. Let's just return a view for this silly example, and with the view bag saying success, you registered successfully. You registered successfully. All right. If it was a real application, we would do something like this, but later on, I will teach you, explain to you how to do that. But just for this example, we are now talking about forms. So let's focus on that. Okay, but how can my forms know that I will have to reach this endpoint called register? How to transform my form, my input to an HTML helper? We can call the ASP action and say register. So this form now is connected to my endpoint called register and the controller register. This is kind of ambiguous, but I hope you. Okay, I will change it to sign up. I'll change it to sign up so you'll understand it better. And the method of this form will be post. But we have to transform this endpoint to an HTTP post method. We have to say it explicitly with this attribute called HTTP post. All right, how will my model knows that this email input has to be binded to my email property on my VM? To this, we can use just normal HTML and say name will be name will be email, and name will be password. And now this is enough. The form will be working. Let's see it in practice. Let's put my form on the layout. Let's call controller register and no area. And the action will be index register. Let's start our application register. Here we have our sign up form. Me. And now for just learning purpose, let's see it in practice, creating an breakpoint here. Me, my email, and my password. Oh, I forgot a submit button. I'm sorry. A form must have a submit button, so all the form will know that it was submitted. Submit, and the class BTN primary. My bad, my mistake, happens all the time. All right, let's submit the form. Let's put my email here. Let's put a select password. And now I've reached my endpoint called sign up with a HTTP post request. Let's see the model. The email has the email that I've submitted, the name, and the select password. And now you can perform any action that you want. You can store it on database. You can store it on the memory of the application. You can do infinite procedures with this data. I hope you get how important this is. And in the next lecture, I will explain to you how to improve this form to become more precise. Like if I make a mistake here and forget my E of my name, this will not be binded to my view model, so I will lost data. So if you are curious, see you next lecture.